Hey, good morning, my friends. Welcome to Mondays with Moss. I'm on my own today. Judy and I, Judy's working today, seeing some patients early. I'm going to get to that about 1 o'clock. But Judy and I have been working on a series that we're presenting to you. The first one was relationship knots and tangles, what we do to create landmines for each other, get caught up in judgments and tension and power struggles, and really sink into the rabbit hole and not do very well with each other. Whether or not you're married, dating, lovers, parents, children, partners, we're shifting a little bit starting in December to really look at 10 habits of successful intimate partners. We thought it'd be a good idea to kind of now move from knots and tangles to what do successful couples do differently than couples who constantly get into arguments and chronic disputes and don't seem to resolve it, and great sense of who's right, who's wrong, hurt. So this past weekend, as you all know, it was Thanksgiving, and one of my daughters had pre-Thanksgiving pizza dinner on Wednesday. She and her husband and grandson did a phenomenal Thanksgiving dinner where we had about, 18 people. And then the next day, traditionally, they did a Thanksgiving brunch. The amazing thing was there were no fights. There were no disputes. There were no, who's the bigger asshole? There was no wronging. There was no comparing themselves to each other or whispering behind each other's backs. People really seemed to get along. They were practicing some of the habits that Judy and I will be talking to you about. What do successful partners do differently? So, what are the unique habits? It seems to me there are two general key areas that you want to pay attention to. One is how you react when you feel misunderstood or mistreated by your partner. The fact is, breakdowns do occur. We misinterpret, we take a tone or a glance as being critical. If we feel misunderstood. I'll give you kind of a simple, silly example. We went to an unveiling of a friend who died about a year ago. Then we went back to his wife's house for a nice little brunch. Hi, Jan. And Judy and I were sitting together, along with some people, having a nice conversation. Actually, the day turned out really quite nicely in terms of intimacy and connection. And Judy got up and said, I'm going to get some dessert. Would you like something? I said, yeah. Bring me back a piece of carrot cake. Looks really nice. So she went over, and then about 4 or 5 minutes later, I noticed her sitting down at the dessert table with a few women, chatting away. I thought to myself, I thought she was going to go to get a piece of dessert. She was going to come back, and we could continue our conversation. I would have a nice piece of coffee cake. A simple little thing. Now, I could have interpreted that as she's disregarding me, she likes somebody better than me, she doesn't really care about me, she says one thing and does another. In other words, I could have reacted in a critical way. When I say anything or keep it to myself, it was a breakdown. It was a breakdown in the follow-through, but it didn't matter. I let it go. And I'll talk to you another time about how I let it go. But today, I just want to talk to you about the two key habits, one of which, when a breakdown occurs, that's a small breakdown. There are much bigger breakdowns, like money, raising kids, work. But one key question you want to ask yourself is, how do you react when you feel misunderstood, mistreated, ignored by your partner? A second general habit to think about is, how do you think and act in ways that promote fondness and appreciation between you and your partner? Stephen Covey wrote many years ago about the emotional bank account. Hi, Ed. Good to see you. He wrote about the emotional bank account. the necessity to do acts, good acts, caring behaviors that allow you as a couple. See, because there are three identities in a relationship: you, the other person, and the us. And each of you need to really put in deposits, not money, but emotional deposits into the emotional bank account. That's one thing that couples who are successful tend to do. So there are 10 specific habits that successful couples do that most couples who are not successful in the relationships do not do on any consistent basis. The first one is what we call avoiding a judgmental attitude. But before, and we'll talk about how that happens when Judy's here next week, we'll act it out, how to have a judgmental attitude and what can you do differently. But the question is, do you have a judgmental attitude? A lot of researchers in marriage research have discovered the vast majority of the time when partners are upset with each other, neither partner has done anything intrinsically wrong. For example, almost 70% of marital upsets, or couples who are intimately connected, perpetually arise from conflicting values, priorities, beliefs, or personal tendencies for which there is no general acceptable standard. Marriages start to slide when partners assume there's a correct standard, like my way, my belief, my preference is the right way, and then you hold your other partner accountable to your belief. For example, here's some questions I'd like you to think about. Like, how much money should you and your partner be spending on different things? How much money should go into savings? How much money should go into entertainment? How much money should go into renovating a house? How much money should go into vacations? How much money should go into savings? Just a question. You may want to look at that. Are you both on the same page? Here's another question. How much of your life should be planned out versus we'll wing it as we go? Some people are very, very focused on, we got to be planful, very linear. Got to think it out. What's our 10-year plan, 15-year plan, 20-year plan? Other people say, my plan is we'll make it up as we go. So who's right? Who's wrong? Okay, here's another one. When you have something to do, like you want to get up in the morning, Saturday, Sunday morning, and you have some jobs to do around the house, like clean up the house, make the bed, do the dishes, maybe pay bills. Do you do that first, or do you go out and take a walk first? I've seen couples get into massive fights and call each other irresponsible versus rigid because one person says, hey, come on, lighten up. Let's go do something for fun. The other one says, well, you're irresponsible. We got to do this first. Who's right? Who's wrong? They get into a judgmental attitude. To what extent is it acceptable to be friends with members of the opposite sex? Some people say, what's the big deal? If I'm a man, I have some female friends. The woman might say, well, that's really a threat to me. I don't like that. You have to stop being friends with her or those women. You're now connected to me, no more other women. Not that you're necessarily having sex with them, but you have friends. So is it acceptable in your relationship to have friendships with the opposite sex or not? How neat and organized should your life be? I know couples, one member of the couple is extremely neat and orderly. Everything has to be right in place. The other one is kind of like, lighten up. Let it be okay. So what's a little clutter? Okay? How much time should you put into career versus family? I know people, particularly men, some men, who spend a lot of time in their career thinking that's the way to take care of the family, and their spouses say he's never around. He doesn't care about the family. Who's right? Who's wrong? How important is it to talk about your feelings? I have a number of couples I'm seeing who one member of the relationship says it's really important to talk about your feelings. And the other one says, I don't do that. I don't talk about my feelings. I work it through myself. Who's right? Who's wrong? These are preferences or beliefs or styles for which there is no definitive answer as to who's right, who's wrong. Another one, how much discipline should be used with the kids? Like when one of my daughters was growing up, I was probably more of the disciplinarian than my wife, who had much more of a friendly attitude. She thought I was too strict. I thought she was too laissez-faire and easygoing. Who's right? Who's wrong? How much time should we spend with our extended families? Some people, when they get together, they really enjoy each other's families. And they like spending time, like I did at Thanksgiving dinner. And other people want to keep it very tight for your own family. So who's right? Who's wrong? Another one. What kind of sexual activities are acceptable or expected? You know, are we risk takers? Do we explore? Do we go to tantra group trainings? Do we practice the missionary position and that's it? Who's right? Who's wrong? How much financial risk should we take? Should we go for stocks or investments that are risky, that are kind of fun and adventurous? May not make much, but it's kind of fun to see what's going to happen. Or do we go to blue stock choices, nice and safe, nice, steady, gradual income? Who's right, who's wrong? So those are some of the questions you might ask yourself to see if you have a judgmental attitude. So how do you know you're judgmental? Well, you might be judgmental if you find yourself thinking things like, he shouldn't have done that. I can't believe he did that. Or how could she even be thinking that? How could she think I'm untrustworthy? Or I would never behave like that. I wouldn't say that in public. What's wrong with him? He has no self-control. Or how come I'm the one who's always stuck cleaning up the house and he never does anything? Yeah, he works, makes a good living. But what does he think? I'm a domestic? Anyway, those are some simple ways in which you might think about it. Maybe you are judgmental. But again, are you right or wrong? Is it based upon your expectation, or is it based upon some acceptable norm that we as a society have agreed upon? So I want you to think about this. So next week, when Judy's here, we will be talking about how do you avoid having a judgmental attitude and doing something very different that seems to really contribute to the emotional bank account. So you end up feeling understood and valued. No rise of adrenaline or cortisol in your body. You end up feeling, all right, we have a difference of opinion here, but at least we are doing something that's not allowing us to fall into the rabbit hole of constant arguing and judgment and who's right, who's wrong. All right, so this may be weird for you, but I've been married a long time, and I've seen many couples, and many couples married, unmarried, and the ones that I think are more successful than the ones who aren't really come from the belief or the possibility nobody has to be wrong. Nobody has to be wrong. That may sound far-fetched to you. It did seem far-fetched to me at one time. It doesn't anymore. There are times I do get judgmental, though, so does my wife. I do lots of stuff that she's judgmental about, but we seem to handle it. Even though we get triggered and have a breakdown, we don't go into chronic warfare over it. Okay? So think about those questions. Hope to see you next week. If you like what we're talking about, hit the like button, and I'll see you next Monday. And take a look at, when you're in your relationships with people, what kind of habits do you have? Do you have habits that promote connection, or do you have habits that make you distant and judgmental? Okay? See you in a week. Bye-bye.